Huh, that was a blooper. Well, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're from. Yeah. How's everybody doing? My name is Leslie Montgomery. I'm having technical difficulties over here, but I want to say welcome. Glad to have you here. Like I said, Ms. Leslie Montgomery, and you are tuned into LKM Kingdom Living, and with by popular demand that are back with me, and the audience is just wanting to hear more about tips. So, um, Donald, okay, uh, working. Can you hear me?
Hear you and see you
Can you
fine.
hear me? Oh, introduce yourself.
Donald
Rick, go
Thomas,
ahead.
life coach.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
awesome.
All right.
Delay.
Okay. I'm Rick Childs. I'm a health renewal coach, a speaker, and the air fry king. Uh, Glad to be here. Really enjoyed our last discussion, with Dr. Thomas. So I got a lot more questions for you. I know a lot of things that we talked about last time, and I'm trying not to repeat those, but I think it's good information, but also have some more information for you also. So looking forward to this discussion.
Uh,
Likewise.
so it sounds a little research going on over there. So
Mhm.
my name, as you know, is Leslie, and this is LKM Kingdom Living, Leslie's Lessons Learned, and we're having a lot of stuff going on with this, with my technology, but we're gonna go get started. Listen, if you're viewing, I want you to take a moment to hit the like sign, share, as we go forth today in this conversation. These gentlemen that are, you guys kind of just rushed over what you do. Uh,
Well, while I think you're freezing up on us, but I think Rick and I, we're not frozen.
No,
So
no, no.
we gotta just move on. I'd like to definitely ask the audience if you had any questions this time around. By all means, if you would start typing in some questions, then we can kind of get the ball rolling
um,
on exactly what you're interested in, is be it nutrition, fitness, motivation, etc. So while we're dealing with the technical difficulties, Rick and I are available. We're live and everything is fine. I know Leslie is getting some delayed feedback, but we're going to keep on stepping forward.
Oh,
So
most
type in those questions.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So I want to go ahead and welcome, hey Ashley, aloha to you, and also to Cheryl Rogers. Welcome to the program. Again, like I said, we're here and we're talking about basically just the part of life that a lot of people kind of go through with your health. Just like you said before, being motivated, having an understanding what your why is. For me, I look at it from a spiritual, mental, and physical health component, and that's what helps me to align and keep in focus as far as what I'm doing each and every day. And it's a lot of times people don't tend to understand that it's just a basic thing. It's what has been created for us to do, but because there's so much junk out there, we get confused and we get, apprehensive about trying to follow a certain plan, because every time you turn around, there's always a new plan. There's always a new motive or product or something that comes out, and it tends to confuse a lot of people. So we're here to tell you that long as you keep it basic, simple, and plain, long as you move, long as you sleep, long as you eat good nutrition, get your rest, recovery, Uh, that's the best part of having good health. So it's definitely so. I know for Dr. Thomas, for him, just like telling me about jumping rope. How many people can jump rope? I mean, you don't need a lot of equipment, you don't need a lot of space, but it's a great exercise and it hits every area. It's what you call in the fitness world, it's a compound exercise. So it allows you to hit a lot of muscles. It also gives you cardiovascular benefits, but it also helps your bone density. So if people don't understand that, your bone density. But the other thing I want to share too, as someone that's in advanced age, it's so important to build muscle and maintain your muscle. And jumping rope can definitely do that for you. And you don't have to be fancy with it, but once you get good with it, you can be fancy with it, and you get so many more benefits from it. So, Dr. Thomas, could you share with us as far as some of the things that you do, not only with exercise, with jumping rope, but just some, a lot of what you bring, to the field that you're in. I know you're a vegetarian, and so can you share some of the other things with us that you do?
Most certainly. One of the things, if you have Netflix, they have a program on called the Blue Zones. And those are places in the world where the people live to be 90 and 100 in good health. And one of the things that they talked about in those blue zones, very few of those blue zones do they go to a gym. They don't necessarily formally work out as much as they're doing farming, they're doing gardening. They walk just about every place, or they ride a bicycle. So the idea that you have to be an Olympic athlete to be physically fit is not the case. America, everything, of course, is about selling a product. So I used to work in gyms, and of course, everybody is going to join the gym the first 3 months of the year. And then after that, they hope everyone who has a gym membership doesn't show up because you couldn't get in the door. So you have walking up the stairs instead of taking an elevator and things of that nature. When you go shopping, take your time and walk around the store. Just walking is one of the best things you can do. Yes, rope jumping is very good, but I go on YouTube and I refer to it as TikTok rope jumping. I'm looking at these kids and they're jumping a mile a minute, and I think that's fantastic. But you don't have to do it anywhere close to that in order to benefit from rope jumping. I developed a jump rope program called New Jump Swing. And the whole basis of that program is that you swing the rope at least a third of the time in between jumping. I had somebody laughing the other day. I said, the older I get, the more I swing, the less I jump. But the idea is that just swinging that rope, of the many professions, uh, orchestra conductors have a very good health because they have their arms above their heart and they're doing this all the time, and that's found to be very effective. So the idea of health is not one where you have to uh, go for a world record. I'm an author, and so I use the Guinness Book of Records as a marketing tool. But normally, I have a very cheap phone bill. It's not like I talk incessantly in normal life. You can be healthy just doing the basic things on a regular basis. A couch potato is someone who's always sitting down, watching TV, snacking, and so on. If you would get up and just walk around in between the commercials, that's a good way to get into the habit of being more physically active. So we're trying to get people to be much more physically active in a normal way. I tell the story, common sense is not as common as you would think. You don't have to try and go out there and, world's strongest man competition and pulling cars and trucks and all this sort of stuff. You just have to be normally physically active on a consistent basis for your body to benefit. Athletic fitness takes the body to a level that is not necessary for basic fitness. The athlete, by definition, is putting their body on a level that is beyond the needs of the body. The body needs physical fitness. It doesn't need to run in 5 seconds. It doesn't need to run for 26 miles. You need to just get your body active. When you were young, you didn't get up and say, oh, I'm going to exercise. You just said, I'm going to go play. Unfortunately, the children nowadays they're not thinking about playing. They're thinking about playing a video game or something of that nature. And there's nothing wrong with the video game within an overall lifestyle of making that child get out and do some sort of activity. So what we're all talking about here is really just getting back to some of the basics of life. I was very pleased, and I have to look up her name. The oldest person in America today is an African American woman who's 114 years old. And you can just look that up. If you go to your search engine, you just say oldest woman in America, 114. You'll see a picture of her. Most of the people in her family have lived to be in their 90s as well. But when they talked about what she did, she had faith, she did regular exercise, she never smoked, and she never drank. So you can see that longevity and good health is something that we can all benefit from if we just try to do the basic things that the body needs to be healthy.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm looking at one of the questions while we're talking. Somebody was asking about honey. I had the good fortune of working with a teacher by the name of Dr. John Moore, and he was the one who introduced me to the whole world of what I refer to as apiarian nutrition, which is honey, royal jelly, bee pollen, propolis. The thing about honeys, and I was on another podcast and the gentleman brought this up, about a good 60 or 70% of the honeys that you're going to buy in the regular store, it's been cut. It's high fructose corn syrup and so on. If it's been heated, that honey just basically is sugar now. So if you can go to a farmer's market or even a health food store that is getting their honey straight from a beekeeper or things of that nature, then you're getting a purer honey. The darker the honey, the more minerals that's still in that honey. One of the things that they recommend, don't put honey in hot tea because the heat will take away a lot of the nutrition and then you're still just getting sugar. Honey is something that could certainly be used as a substitute, but you don't need a lot of it. To be honest with you, one of the best things you can use for honey is for wounds, for burns and things of that nature. There's a honey, very expensive, but it's legitimate, called Manuka honey. And that is a honey that has been used for infections and things of that nature. Even with that, you have to be careful because they have counterfeit Manuka honeys as well. So in America, you always have to buyer beware. But honey is certainly something that you could use. There are some people who have allergies to bee products. And so if you do, then that wouldn't be something that you want to use. But honey is a very good substitute for sugar if you're using it in relatively small quantities, not in hot water. You can just get a little bit and take about a third of a fourth of a teaspoon and just take a little bit if you have a sore throat. Now, you're listening to my voice. You're listening to the voice of a man who has talked for 93 hours straight. One of the things that I used during those 93 hours was the honeys that Dr. Moore put me on.
Y'all go ahead. I'm still trying to get stuff set up.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Thomas. I appreciate that. Yeah. One of the things that you said about honey is that you definitely have to be careful about the ones that you purchase from the stores because there are additives to it, and you're not getting, the full product that you think you're getting. I use honey a lot. I purchase mine from the farmer's market.
Perfect.
So that to make sure. I guess the only way to know for sure is if you're raising bees yourself and doing that. So, but again, there are ways to find out and check and test. But a lot of great points about heating up your honey and then utilizing it for first aid.
Yes.
And then definitely because there's different honey. Because I know for myself, I use wildflower and clove, and I like those too. And I've been using it for years. I get it from one place. So thank you for answering that.
The darker the honey, the better.
Yes.
It just has more buckwheat honey, wildflower honey. Here in Hawaii, we're able to, I've worked with people who do raise their own bees. It's something that I've played with, but I'm not ready to go that far. But it is something that I strongly recommend that if people are interested. And there's something called Flow Hive. You can look that one up on the internet. And it's a well-contained sort of thing. And they have a gentleman who's who's raising bees up on his roof in Brooklyn. So it can be done. But the idea is that if you have allergies to bee products, then you would want to stay away from it, just because everything that's good may not be good for everyone, but it's still something that's good. I see another question, and they ask, does the military over exercise people? Very likely. Very likely. You want to be physically fit and militarily ready. But, I came up during the time of Vietnam. I had a knee disease that kept me out of the military service. Talked about it before, Osgood-Schlatter disease, very painful. I had approximately 12 pieces of bone chips removed from each knee. And even when I studied martial arts, I couldn't keep up with the physical aspect of it because my knees would just kill me afterwards. I tried out for the track team in high school and I made the team, but then I was in pain for the next 2 weeks. So the military is something that you have to, when you go into the military, you have to accept the fact that you're accepting it's no longer a democracy. Okay. Military justice is its own justice, and military training is its own training. And you really just need to work with the military doctors. If you're in the military and you're seeing that you're having a certain amount of pain from exercise is normal, but if that pain is becoming chronic, then if you're in the military, you owe it to yourself to go to the military doctors and explain to them, this is what's going on with me right now. You don't want to get it to the point where you're really messed up even after you leave service. So you always speak up for yourself, especially if you're in the military. And if you see that you're having some chronic problems, by all means, go to that military doctor and have it documented. I do Social Security, and I've also worked with veterans. You have VA benefits, you have Social Security benefits. Anytime you have an illness, don't put it off. Make sure that you get the documentation of that illness in your medical records, because should you have to go for disability down the road, the longer you have good documentation of when that problem started, the better for your case.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, great question. And what I like about that is that I know when I was back in the 80s, I was in the Air Force. So I came through the military and I had some of the issues like where you were talking about getting documentation on certain things. So for me, when I went into the military, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about as far as like with the BMI, the body mass index, that was something that was used back when I was going into the military, and I had to have my weight at a certain, I had to be at a certain weight before I could actually go in.
Right.
And that caused me a lot of issues because, to be honest with you, it didn't apply to me. I didn't find this out until many, many years later. But on top of having my, issues with my weight, like you were just saying about the exercise, I could, I was always in the top 5 in all the exercise challenges and stuff that we did. I looked nice in my uniform, but I was weighing 200 pounds and they wanted me at 175.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an issue because when I was coming up in the military, they would have what they would call is like a deployment where they would get you up early in the morning just for readiness. But generally that would be for them just to weigh you or to do some, certain things. And if your weight wasn't where it needed to be, you would, you could lose your rank based
Yes.
off of that. And that was
Yes.
one of the issues I had. So, in my group, I had that problem, had that issue. So somebody told me go to the hospital and get a waiver. So I went to the hospital, asked for a waiver. The funny thing about that, when I went to go get a waiver, the guy that was working with me was a bodybuilder. He was triple my size. And he's the one that told me that you could have a waiver, but my duty officer wouldn't allow me to have a waiver. So that was one of the things, the issues that I had coming up that even dogged me all the way before I went into the military, but after that, because of the BMI, was saying my weight should be at a certain place, but it didn't apply to, what I would say, to minorities, African Americans. That did not apply, but it was a tool that was continually used up to a certain point. I don't think they use it now.
Oh, they
but it's
do.
definitely they still
Yeah.
do.
Social
Okay.
Security still uses BMI, even though they acknowledge that it's not the most accurate. They haven't changed. One of the most accurate would be water immersion, where you're actually getting the accurate breakdown of how much body fat you have. Even in the NFL, they argue that there were some people that they were saying were overweight, but actually the guys are like 7% body fat, but he's 200 and something pounds. And the BMI doesn't take into account how much of your weight is body fat, how much of your weight is muscle. But yeah, for Social Security, they still use BMI if you're going to claim obesity or anorexia. They still use that BMI table. So, America, we still haven't changed over to the metric system. So there's many things that America is behind on when it comes to even medical evaluations. So, people, you can buy the skin calipers, and those are relatively inexpensive. And you can kind of do your own tests, the forearm, the stomach, and the thigh, and you can get some beginning ideas. But they're considered the most accurate to be the water immersion. But that's expensive. And you may not have that in all places, or if you do, your insurance may not cover it. So, try to eat a good diet. If you're walking around and things are jellying, then
It's time to do something.
it's time to do something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. And yeah, and that was the thing that like I said, for me, and I think back over the years because it started when I was younger, that when you can think psychologically that can hold you back. And as I
Yeah,
see in the chat, a number of people understand, yeah, it is a tool that could be used to discriminate, that could be used to keep you out of a job, that could be used, to control certain dynamics when it comes to just life, period. It's a whole big, story that you could talk about because there's just so many things that are connected to it. And I mean, my story is not any different than anybody else's. But if you don't understand it and don't know it, once you get to a certain point, as I've gotten older, what I've realized is it's not about losing weight. It's about having that ratio, muscle to fat ratio. And that's something that as you get older, you want to understand that you need to have more muscle on your frame to be
you know,
able to operate.
yes, and that's just the point that you're saying. One of the most important things, people, as we get older, when you're a young man, a young woman, you want to look fit and trim, and you're spending time in the mirror and everything else, and you're going to the gym. And as you get older, you give up those things. The truth of the matter is, you want to get more into fitness as you get older, not less, because that's when your body is going to need it the most. And so we have a tendency, you have people that they used to be athletes when they were in their 20s, and now they're couch potatoes in their 40s and 50s. That's bad for you. And as I say, you don't have to be a champion athlete as you get older, but you want to get into the habit. Gardening, if you spend time in the garden, I mean, of course, when it's winter, you can't do that, but gardening is an excellent exercise that you can do. You're sitting up, you're bending down. Um, I want to go back 1 second. Not only does it discriminate in terms of African Americans, you have a separate BMI chart for Asian Americans because they have a different body composition. So you always want to know yourself, know your body, be honest with your body. If the pants that you bought last year are not fitting this year, it's time to make a change. If you are walking upstairs and you're out of breath, it's time to make a change, whether you smoke cigarettes or not. If you're getting out of breath very quickly, it's time to make that change. And a gentleman and I used to talk about there's no illness that benefits from you not doing anything. If you get in the morning and you get under the wheel of your car, you turn on the ignition and you hear a rattling under the hood. How many times are you going to do that before you make an appointment to go and take that car in? You wake up in the morning and the first thing you're doing, and you hear a rattling in your chest. How long do you do anything before you go to the doctor and get that taken care of? So nothing benefits from saying, oh, I'll just leave it alone. You have to kind of take care of yourself in a normal way. As I said, it's not common sense is not as common as you would think. You have to take care of yourself. Who else is going to if not you?
Well, I want to thank everybody that's here. I appreciate you being here. Uh, thank you guys. I'm not ending. Thank you guys for filling in while I was trying to get it straightened out. I want to say good evening, good afternoon. Well, let's do it the proper way. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others, and good evening to those that have entered into their evening. Thank you so much for being here on Leslie's Lessons Learned today. We appreciate you being here. I saw Pastor Elder Shirley Rogers. I want to say thank you so much for being here. Alfreda, Tiffany, Pastor Daphne, or anyone that's on here, whether we see you or not, we want to say thank you for being here. And as we continue with this conversation, because there's so much that we need to know, and I know one of the things my sister always says is that we need our own charts because we're shaped and we're different, and they need to start making charts for minorities, for us of color,
Yes.
because it's different than what they are. And she always says that. And when you think about it, uh, maybe we need to create our own. Maybe we need to get in a place where we create it so that it can, you know, begin to be used at some point. So yeah, you guys can continue on. The honey,
Well,
uh,
one of the things going back to the Asian BMI, and as you were saying, Leslie, the reason that they have a separate chart is because the Asian countries have developed their own BMI
we need
in
to
terms of
develop
what
ours.
their
Yes,
body fat and so on is supposed to be like. It would be good if we're able to hands across the ocean and work with some of the African countries to see if they can work on just what you're saying to develop a more accurate assessment of body composition. Again, I'm always on YouTube and so on, and I know
mhm.
that these are people who are doing a little bit better than the average. But every time I see those kids or see those people in Africa, I don't see anything shaking. Their skin is bright. Uh, they're looking good. Now, like I said, I'm sure that they don't represent everyone, but the
Right,
ones that I see, you can really see the difference in their skin, in their stature, in the muscle tone. I'm immediately aware of that, and even the older ones, and I've even seen some of the TikTok and so on, even the kids that's obviously living in poverty, and in the schools, you don't see the pimples on their skin and thing. I mean, their skin is like glass almost. It's amazing, how because they're not eating junk. They're
they
not
don't eat
growing up
what
with
we
all of
eat.
that stuff. You see, they're not growing up with all of that. Yes, every place in Africa is not starving, and where they are living well, they are on the traditional, what is referred to here in America as whole food plant-based diet. That
Right.
is the traditional African diet. On my website, I talk about any of your marathon runners from Africa. You look and see what is their diet. They're not on steroids. They're not on steak. They're still eating their traditional diet of complex carbohydrates, certain greens, and things of that nature. And they got strong enough to run 26 miles. You know what I'm saying? And they don't have the pains that we have. So we really have to, and of course, it's hard for a parent to try to say to the child, well, no, you can't have A, B, and C. But the more you can kind of explain to your child, this is why I want you to eat that apple and not Apple Jacks. This is why I want you to go out today and play with your friend for at least a half an hour. Uh, these are the sort of things that you can kind of get across. Children, they have a certain amount of awareness, and if you can present it to them in a way that they can understand, you start off with children and really try to get children to understand the benefit of good nutrition. Many children, oh, I don't like greens, I don't like this. Well, as a parent, try and introduce them to different type of greens or different types of fruits and vegetables. Whichever fruit they like, that's the fruit that you buy. Whatever type of vegetable they like, those are the vegetables that you buy. You can't really force these things on people, but if you can introduce it to them and work with them, then they won't see it as something that they want to rebel against. Especially you're a teenager, the more you tell me not to do it, the more I may do it. But
Right,
if you
right,
kind of
right.
present it to them so that you're respecting them, We're going to go to the supermarket today. Tell me what fruits you would like. We're going to go to the supermarket today. What vegetables would you like to try? And make them a part of the process so that they will always kind of say, yeah, I like this, and so I'm going to eat it. And that I've seen enough things, and I've seen people with heart disease and cancer and so on. I don't want that for myself. And one of the things I bring up in my book, I was with the American Heart Association for more than 20 years. They have done research to show symptoms of heart disease are coming upon African Americans some 10 to 15 years earlier than those same symptoms among Caucasians. And it's not because of any genetic defect on our part. It's because we're growing up from children on a lot of stuff that's just no good for us. And I always go back to the point, depending upon how old you are, talk to the oldest people in your family. Ask them what did they eat on a regular basis, and that's your start. Matter of fact, if they're the oldest people in your family, the reason that they're still old and around is because they were eating like that from their earliest days. My mother used to say candy was a luxury. They maybe got a piece on a Saturday or something like that. Now the kid has got candy
all the time.
indiscriminately, and it's no good. So the more, I talk about Kentucky Fried Chicken. You can buy 12 chicken legs. Well, that's 6 chickens. Who on a farm could kill 6 chickens in a night? Okay. And so you see, it's just an overconsumption of things. As a people, when we were on a farm, you're talking about 6-7 hours of physical labor. So whatever the people were eating, they were burning that stuff off. Before a tractor, you had man behind a mule going up and down roads. That's called aerobics today, because he was breathing heavy. He's walking all day long, or she's walking all day long. So these are things that we got away from when we left the South to come up to the North. We didn't do the same sort of physical activity. Not that some of that stuff back there was, might as well say, slavery as far as I'm concerned, but it was physical activity that we're no longer involved in. It's just like an athlete. You're an athlete and you were consuming 5,000 calories when you were in training, great. You're a basketball player, you were consuming 5,000 calories when you were playing, great. When you retire, you can't eat like that and not think you're going to blow up. So you have to moderate your intake based upon what you're doing in life. If you're not doing too much, you still want a balanced diet, but you don't want to eat as much as you used to when you were working all day long.
Yeah, and that's true, and it's something that we really don't take into the factor that you're shifted, you're doing things different, you're not doing them like they used to do.
That's right.
The first thing we say, I don't know, I've never had a problem with this, or this never happened, but we never take into we never put in place or put that there. You've made changes. You have a different lifestyle, and that's what you're talking about. I was thinking about when you were saying about find the older people. I was laughing. I said, we don't have too many. We the older ones now in our family.
Yeah, this is true. This
Yeah,
is
we
true.
the
True.
limit the older people in our family is a handful.
Yeah,
You know.
and that's why now that we have everybody has a smartphone and everything else, we owe it to ourselves to try and interview our older people, and and just have them just sit down and just talk story, as they say. And what did y'all do every day? And how did you do this? And how did you do that? Because we're losing a certain amount of past knowledge as we're coming up in this modern age, and we don't have the people that we can sit down and talk to. You and I, Leslie, and Essie lived to be 104. And this, that's unparalleled wisdom. She's lived through all of these things and so on. This is like, and I say to young people who are involved in politics or civil rights, I say, you talk to these old people, how did they make it? They came up in a time when a white person walking down the street, they had to walk into the street. Okay, you had to look down, you couldn't look them in the eyes and all of this. You have to ask them, how were they able to make it all of that time and still had dignity, still took care of themselves? We really need to respect, not just respect our elders, but recognize the treasure of knowledge that they have.
Yeah, and that's true. I've talked about that myself with Lester and Linda and all of us. And one of the things that I'm trying to encourage us to do is start our family tree, because if we start it with our families and let it grow from there, at least our children and their children will have something to hold on to. And that's something I want to encourage those that are listening, that you're talking about. These are things that is history. This is our history. When we speak to our young older ones and we get this information, and we can tell our children and our children's children this information, or they can find it. Well, that we do have the family tree when we go to our family reunion, and we have the section set up, and it has the family tree, has what, maybe back to the, I don't know, the 1800s maybe, but they have it from there all the way up to now, and they're always asking, send your information so we can put it in. They have a book about with our family tree in it. But I think as each family personally, one of the other things that if you remember, everybody had a big Bible, and in the Bible they had who was born when, who got married, all that was in the Bible. That was part of history.
That's right.
And that's what we need to do. We've gotten so far away from that, but it's so vitally important that we begin to get this information together, and start, even if you don't have any, start with your family,
Right.
so that you can create history. Because history, we have history. We might not have out there working on the farm or plowing, because I remember riding the tractor, but I wasn't doing no labor work, you know. But we have stories too that they need to be able to tell their children, how we overcome, how we made it. It's just as important. And if we don't grasp it now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, the next family will still be talking about it. Oh, we don't have any information. We got to start now.
We got to start. One of the things I can say, and it's not to tooting my own horn, but just to share something with people. Um, there are people who refer to me as the Hank Aaron of vegetarianism. And I told you about that last time. And if you look in the Guinness Book and so on, Hank Aaron is in the Guinness Book twice. He's in there for beating Babe Ruth's home run record at 715, and he's in there for receiving more mail in 1 year than any private citizen. He received 900,000 pieces of mail. 300,000 was hate mail. I've been in the Guinness Book of Records since 1980. 1984, when I came back to New York one time, I saw a editor of a health magazine, and a friend of mine was trying to get me an article written. And the guy looked at me and says, "Oh yeah, you the vegetarian preacher. We're going to write something about you. Don't hold your breath waiting." I've had more people deny the fact that I have broken those records than have acknowledged it. And so when we talk about Black history, I'm still alive. Anyone who has ever been a public speaker has spoken on some corner of 125th Street. My
Yep.
first Guinness record was done on 125th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. I've yet to have any write-ups about that. So, we start talking about Black history, we don't have to go back that far.
We don't.
You
We
know,
are the history.
we are the history.
That's
We
what I
are the
say.
history.
It's
You
not a
know,
1 month thing. What we live.
that's
That's
what
who
we
we
live.
are.
We
And
live.
that's what I say. And
And
it's important that people understand that,
yes,
that we are the history, that what we do now, it's it's what's gonna carry on in the
yes.
years.
Yes.
In the
So
years.
what I would, so my point was that if I'm here and now, and I can tell you that somebody looked me and said, "Don't hold your breath waiting to write about me." As big as health food is, the fact that there's a Black man holds 3 world records in the name of health food and telling you that people told him, "Don't hold your breath waiting." Well, then you can appreciate why you have to really go into your own Black history. If they can tell that to me in 1984, then all of the things that Black people invented in the 1900s, the 1800s, and so on, quite naturally, they're not going to promote that. You know, the idea of American society, if you're promoting white supremacy and Black inferiority, any achievements by Black people can't be promoted because it conflicts with what you're promoting. Okay, it's not just saying you're inferior. I'm going to make sure people think you're inferior, including your own people, because
Right.
I'm going to make sure you don't know all of the things that you have achieved as a
Right.
people. That
Right.
becomes psychological.
That's right.
Why should you take care of yourself if you're still looking down upon yourself? If you don't respect yourself as a Black person, why should you stop smoking? Why should you change your diet? If you have a new car and an old junky car and you park them both out on the street, if the kids go up onto that old junky car, you could care less. If they look too hard at the new car, you're ready to go out there and fight them. Because you see the value of that new car compared to the old car. If you're
Yeah.
looking upon yourself, and I'm going to say some things here and we just have to put it out there. This is the 21st century. You have Black people, rich Black people, still calling themselves nigger. 21st
Mm.
century. And they're doing it because they're getting paid to do it. Richard Pryor was the man who popularized the use of that word. And Richard Pryor stood up to his audience and said he went to Africa and realized he never used the word the whole time he was there. And he said to his audience, I was wrong for using it. That word was a part of our wretchedness. And I'm not going to use that word again. Everyone after Richard Pryor who was using it, they're using it because they're getting paid. They are being
Right.
helped to do it. You could not get up there. I was just watching the 40th anniversary of Thriller. Michael
Mm.
Jackson had a song. It started out, the original words was Jew me, sue me, everybody do me, kick me, kite me, don't you black or white me. All of the Jewish people that Michael knew said, oh, Michael, that's anti-Semitic. You have to change that. He did. The next song on that album is This Time Around. There's a rap by Biggie Smalls. This time around, I'm a killer nigga, I ain't lying. It was on there from the first pressing. It's on there to this day. So if
That's right.
you as a Black person want to stand up there and low rate and denigrate yourself, they'll make you a star. They'll put you on stage, screen, and television. Don't you dare think you can do it to them. So we have to have love and respect for ourselves so that
Yes,
we
we
will
do.
take care of ourselves.
So there are Elder Cheryl was saying some things. Hey, Teresa. Rick, I know you want to say something. I know you want to jump in here and say something. While you do, while you, one of the things she said is that some of those Bible recordings are still accepted today if they are old enough.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes,
valuable
because that was the
information. We
that was
still have Papa's Bible and
especially for
Mama's
Black
Bible.
people. If you had a birth, the midwife very often might have been the one who brought you into this world. And and if you have the documentation in that Bible, they have to accept it because that was the primary form of documentation. So yes, they have to accept that in many cases, most certainly, most
Okay.
certainly.
And the other thing was she was saying that some new food items like veggies usually take about 8 to 10 times of being introduced to a child for them to develop an appreciation or even to begin to like it. And that, that's true.
And the earlier you introduce it to them, the quicker those 10 times.
Right. And that right there is very important, that we don't introduce them to the wrong food when they come in, and then once they are introduced to the right foods, they'll grasp that more, I believe, than they would the wrong food.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, no, I was loving the discussion. I mean, and one of the things that resonated for me was there was a documentary on Netflix called The Magic Bullet. And what it did was it basically talked about what you were saying, how things are passed down. So it took a couple of different families and it looked at, you know, some of the health issues that they were going through. A lot of times we look at it and we think it's in our DNA, but actually it's in our recipes. It's what we pass down as far as the types of food that if your grandmother cooked this way, then your auntie's cooking this way, your mother's cooking this way, and these things get passed down. So when they saw that, they changed up some things and they saw the difference because what ended up happening, these people end up getting healthier because they were changing the types of foods and the recipes that they were eating. And one of the things that I share with people all the time, and I heard this somewhere, is that when we're healthy, we have many wishes, but when we're not healthy, we only have one wish, and that's to be healthy. So you have to understand that even in your teens and your 20s, you can't eat the same way in your 30s and 40s and 50s. You have to adjust. You have
Have to
to
make those
adjust.
adjustments.
That's the truth.
And
I was in the supermarket one day and a little boy was running and he just fell down and he looked up and looked at me and smiled and got up and started running. I laughed to myself. I said, now, if that was me, I'd still be down.
Right.
oh yeah,
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 yeah. You can't do what you used to do when you can eat anything as a kid almost, you know.
no,
You still may get sick, but you can still eat it. You get to be older, you'll be in a world of pain.
yeah, yeah, most
What my
definitely.
grandson tell me sometimes, well, do it like an old person, mom. But she tried to get me to run. I was like, I can't run like that. Well, run like an old person.
Yeah,
You know, I'm looking at, like I said, I'm looking at the TikTok and so on now, and I'm seeing how they're doing the rope jumping. And I just laughed at myself and I said, oh no, I won't be doing it like that. You know, I've been jumping rope since I was 21 years old. But I
mhm,
won't be up there jumping a mile a minute. You don't have to. But
Mm.
you like anything else, as they say, a man's got to know his limitations. A woman's got to know your limitations. You don't try to go out there and do what when you see all of these different exercise programs, CrossFit and so on. You have to be in very good shape to do that. If you're over 30, 40 years old, don't even look at that other than entertainment. Don't even think about trying to do that stuff because you're going to be in the doctor, the chiropractor, and the physical therapist, and everybody else behind that. And you don't have to go that far. That's the point. The body needs regular movement. It doesn't need marathon movement or Olympic training exercises or things of that nature. Just move. You know, literally, that was Michelle Obama's thing. Move. Let's move. You know, get the kids out there. Let's move. Let's be active. If your child is sitting in the house all day, let's go for a walk. You know, walk around the block. You know, something as simple as that. Depending upon the neighborhood you live in, bring a couple of people with you. You know, but the
mhm.
idea is let's go for a walk. Let's just walk. That's all you have to do to really get the heart pumping and get into the habit of feeling physically stronger.
Yeah, I'm
You
gonna
know,
say this, and I'm gonna go back to Rick because Rick been trying to say something. We've been talking all over him. Sorry,
Oh,
Rick.
oh no, 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 you're good.
The difference between a teenager and a child. Now, my grandson, he likes to walk all the time. I tried to get my 14-year-old to go walking. She don't want to go walking. So I said, come on and walk. And she was mad the whole time because I made her walk. But he's
she's
like,
at that
yeah,
age.
let's go. But then he wants to run. I'm out there trying to run with him and do all this other stuff. But the fact of the matter is he still likes to go out. So does the middle one. They still like to go out and play. And I think that that's very important. All right, Rick, back to you.
No, so I was looking at the chat, and yeah, definitely. What Daphne was saying, "What the Health?" That's another great documentary. It dives deep into a lot of ills that go on in America, but also too, just keep in mind for any documentaries that you may look at, you have to look at there are special interests that have an objective into why they're promoting some of these things. So do your
Their
research,
agenda, right?
definitely do your research. And I'm gonna just, disclaimer, what we share here is educational information. You still have to do your research. You still have to go to your doctor and get yourself checked out. Always keep those things in mind. One of the things I wanted to ask Dr. Thomas was, as being a vegetarian, um, protein is so important, especially as we start to age. Once we get past 40, protein is definitely important. So as a vegetarian, what protein sources do you recommend? Because like I said, I'm still a meat eater. Lean animal protein for me, I know a lot of those, but for some of the people that may be in the chat, the audience that are leaning towards vegetarian, what are some sources that you would recommend?
Okay. Well, shameless plug. The name of my book is New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program. Shameless plug. The bottom line is There's a doctor that brings it up very well. He says the average American is getting more than enough of what is regarded as adequate protein. Where do you get your fiber from? Fiber is what you need to move all of that stuff out of your system. Fiber is what you need that will lower the cholesterol and things of that nature. All forms of beans, peas, nuts, seeds, those are all protein sources. Even things like broccoli contains protein. Very few people in America are suffering from protein deficiency. They're suffering from fiber deficiency. Even believe it or not, even though people in America eat meat, and 95% of Americans eat meat, the Center for Disease Control recommends that everyone over the age of 55 take a B12 supplement because you're not getting adequate B12. If you're 55 or older, you find a constant tingling in the bottom of your feet or your fingers or fatigue, when you get your blood work done, you want to make sure that they do a B12 assessment because they recognize that many people are B12 deficient, even though they may be eating meat. It's one thing to eat it, it's another thing for your body to absorb it. But again, all forms of the people you see black eyed peas and rice. That's a protein source. Lima beans and collard greens. That's a protein source. The people never have to worry about adequate protein. Now, what they want to say is when you get to be much older, or you would say 60s, 70s, like me, uh,
And
they
like
want
me.
to, okay. They want to make sure that you're getting. What happens is that as people get older, they don't eat as much. And when
Right.
you have senior citizens that are living off of very little, they're not getting adequate nutrition in general. If you ever go to a senior center or life care center or something like that, one of the things that they have problems with is trying to get the elderly to eat more protein because they can't digest it. At a certain age, you go to the doctor and they may put a senior citizen on digestive enzymes and things of that nature because they recognize that they're not breaking down that food. I know they tried to put my mother on a higher protein, and the first thing she said, it's too rich. I can't digest it. You can't handle it. So go again, black eyed peas and rice, lima beans, uh, all of the things that the people ate in the past, those are protein sources. And they used to have this concept of protein complementation. They would say that, oh, other than, say, soy, there's no one particular plant food that has all of the protein. True to the point that how many people are just sitting down to a can of beans? You always eat the beans with cornbread or rice or other things. And so in a normal diet, when you eat all of the things that you would normally eat, whatever is deficient in that one bean or what have you, the rice or the cornbread or whatever will complement that. So you are getting your protein sources. And as I had said before, 1986 in my book, The Way of PDN, the Ultimate Vegetarian Athletic Nutrition Program, the first edition of this book, New Jump Swing, I have a 3-page copy of my blood work in that book. I'm not just saying that it's healthy. Here's my health. I'm not B12 deficient. I'm not iron deficient. My kidneys and my lung function is fine. And so I can say with assurance that if you're eating just like the old people used to eat, eat the greens, but keep the fat back out of it because there's too much fat. Okay. Remember that salt, the same salt that they put down on that ground in the winter, that's the salt that you're putting into your body. That salt, even among Asian people who in general have a pretty good health, they have a lot of stomach cancer and things of that nature. That salt is very bad on your system. The average African consumed about 500 milligrams of sodium a day. The typical American is no less than 25, 35, or 4,000 milligrams of salt per day. And this goes back to the children. If you try, doesn't have to be bland, but the least amount of salt that you can introduce the child to, their taste buds will not become perverted, if you will, so that everything has to be salty or sweet in order for them to like it. If that's why I say apple compared to Apple Jacks. If they're used to those sugary cereals as children, then they're already being conditioned to have a taste for a lot of sweetness that they don't need. But when you try to introduce them to something that's healthy, this tastes terrible because their taste buds have been conditioned to that high salt and that high sugar. So, again, things in moderation. Maybe you realize now, if you cook with salt, don't put any more on it when you sit down to it. That's the first way to try to go about these things. Realize that there's a diet called the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension, and it is a clinical diet. They purposely used approximately 60% African Americans on that diet because since African Americans have some of the highest rates of hypertension, if it was effective for African Americans, it could say, well, this is something that's effective for people in general. It's not a complete vegetarian diet, but it focuses on no more than about 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. And just that alone was able to do so much improvement over time. So we always have to think, we've been conditioned. Why do we like the taste of these things? Because we've been conditioned. And so
Right.
we have to slowly but surely decondition ourselves, if you will, and realize that this stuff is this is why I have the high blood pressure. This is why every time I perspire, I taste salt. When I perspire, I'm tasting all this salt in my. It's got to come out some
Mm.
way. So you
Wow.
can again, the people in the South, they were exercising, but even then, they ate watermelon, they ate melons, they ate a lot of fluids that would flush those things out of them. Yes, they were eating salt, but they were also drinking a lot of fluid. They were exercising, and they were keeping that stuff flushed out of their system. Whereas now we're eating that same way, but we're not exercising. It's not flushing out of our system. And that's part of what is doing the damage that it's doing to our body.
That's good. My doctor called me the other day and told me to get off the vitamin D, that my vitamin D count was too high. And I was like,
Yeah,
well, during COVID, y'all was like, take all the vitamin D
take
you
all
can
the
take.
vitamin D you want.
And
Yeah,
like, she's
yeah.
like, yeah, we're not there now. I need you to lay off for a while.
That's very good, because there's a scientist, I always forget his name, but he did a study with African American children to show that in general, African American children were vitamin D deficient. We are dark skinned people. We are the people of the sun. We need a certain amount of sunlight for our bodies to truly benefit from everything that the sun has. One of the first ways to get vitamin D is through the sun. Now, that doesn't mean you go out there to the beach and lay out there and bake all day, okay? You only need about maybe 15 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight. And I knew a dermatologist originally came from New York, and he wouldn't even walk out the door between 10 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon if he could,
It's hot.
unless he had on a big brim hat and he just
It's
covered
hot.
up. Well, in Hawaii is right next to the equator. And so we get the greatest concentration of sun. When I was younger, I could go out there without a shirt. I've done it in the past. Oh, I've got all kinds of tingling on my skin. I can't do it anymore like I used to. And so we need the vitamin D, but you go to any reputable source of nutrient requirements and you see how much vitamin D do you need in a day, and that's it. And when you get to that point, then you don't have to worry about the vitamin D. In my book, I wrote about Bruce Lee. And one time he went to the doctor, he had a high iodine content. And they found out he was overeating seaweed, which is a good source of iodine.
Huh.
If you're not eating salt, they iodize the salt. Now, you can
Right.
see it when you go to it's iodized. If you're not eating salt, then you need to make sure that you have food sources of the iodine. A little bit of seaweed is fine. It may sound bad, but they have what they call nori flakes and things like that. You just sprinkle a little bit on your food or mix it in with the greens. You won't hardly taste it. But the idea is that too much of anything is no good for you. Not enough of something is no good for you. So
That's true.
you always want to stay in that moderate basis. Like I said, I don't talk for 93 hours in general.
Yeah, we about doing it now, but it's okay. But there's really some good things in the comment, and I want Rick to finish talking. We're at the top of the hour, but one of the things I was thinking about, if I could get y'all to come back on and talk about grounding and being in the sun, you know, how important and healthy that is for us as well. I think that's another area that we can tackle, you know, because now we used to walk outside maybe barefooted, and now we don't. We don't get into grounding. Some people are starting to get into it now because now it's more sophisticated. You
Yes,
know, people, oh yeah, we got to ground, we got to ground. But the effects of it, not just to ground, but what it's actually doing to our bodies, and how it, when we connect with the ground, we're connecting with where we came from.
exactly.
So if I can get y'all to, you know, probably come back on and talk about that. I want to make this month kind of like a health month, you know, where we talk about different aspects of being healthy. All right, Rick, I'm going to keep quiet.
Oh no, you're fine. But I had a question when you mentioned your vitamin D level, and you said your doctor wanted you to either stop or back off what you would take. And I'm just interested in what did he give you a number where your number was? Because
No, I probably have it here, but
okay, because
they
the
just
range
called
is
me.
30 to 100, and it's
Yeah,
normally recommended in the middle. And the reason why I say that is because um, my vitamin D level, I did, you know, I always do blood work to know
right.
where my numbers are and if I'm deficient. So I wanted to try this vitamin D product with K2 in it. So what I did was I went ahead and had some blood work done. So were my vitamin D level. So it was good. It was at actually was at 30. And like I said, the range is 30 to 100. So I said for 3 months, I'm gonna go back, get my blood work, and I'm gonna check. So I took this product for 3 months. My vitamin D level went from 30 to 67.7, 67.5. So I know the product works. It went up. It was in the, you know, I wanted it in the center range. They said generally that's a healthy range to have it in. So that way you don't have to worry about it falling and being deficient. Because a lot
Yeah,
of
well, I'm not deficient. I
right,
got too much.
Too much.
right.
I'm over I'm over the whatever that limit is. They said I'm way over it.
Mm.
Okay. So
Well,
would it
I
be
take a
100?
lot of vitamin D.
Okay. So it
I
would
don't
be
take
over
like
100.
one. I take like 3 or 4 at a time every day. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because even what I was taking, I was it wasn't every day, it was every other day. And
yeah,
it still brought my level up to mid range, a little bit over mid range to where I could maintain it. So, you know, that's the thing that you don't have to take it every day. But what you were saying about grounding, I'm an electrician by trade. I sleep on a grounding mat. I
Okay.
believe in, you know, the process. So for us, we have melanin. The melanin in our skin attracts the sun, actually absorbs the sun.
well, I
So
don't want you to talk about
you
it
know what I mean?
now.
Okay. Okay, I'll
Because
save that for that.
that's a
But
whole
yeah,
nother.
whole nother.
Yeah, and it sounds real good, but
Mhm.
I want you to come back, you guys to come back and talk
Okay.
about that again. I appreciate you being on here. One of the other, sometime, I think not next week, the week after,
Mhm.
it'll be my cousin, Dr. Brenda Mitchell. Hopefully, Donna will come back on, and Linda, and we're going to have a conversation about it's a family affair,
Mhm.
talking about the Black family and what we need to do different. And you know, you guys have been in the professional field, so you understand and you see a lot. And I really want to talk about it. I might even see if we can get Dr. Sabrina on here too, but her schedule is so different. But yeah, that's what we're going to do. But I do want, would love for you two to come back and talk about grounding. And, you know, Donald, you just got a whole lot in you that you need to get out.
Mhm.
You like my apostle. He got a whole lot in him. He need to get out.
Uh,
But I thank you so much for being here. Everyone that is here, it's so good to see you. Hey Jim or Georgiana, it's good to see you. Teresa, thank you for being here. Listen, if you have not hit the like sign, if you have not shared or subscribed, please do so before you leave this room today. And we will be back next week, Sunday. We will continue our conversation, Leslie's Lessons Learned, at 9 a.m. in the morning. And we're still talking about the wow moment, what that wow moment was. And like somebody told me, we need some testosterone on it. So we're gonna work that one out. Oh, my thing. So listen, do y'all have any last words you wanna anything else you wanna say before we close out?
Rick?
Oh well,
Donna,
no,
you got
no,
tired?
no. So I want to just want to say thank you to to Dr. Thomas. Like I said, he has a wealth of knowledge, information, and experience, and it's my pleasure, like I said, to be able to talk to him and ask him questions because, again, like I said, you got to take your health serious, and you have to be a component of your own. I mean, even if you have a doctor, even if you have a dietitian or anyone that's supporting you, you still have to do the work to know your own body. You have to know certain things you may eat. You have to know what is it doing, to you and for you. So it's just so important. You have to take accountability for your health. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Yep, we appreciate them. Um, love you, cuz.
Love you. Thank you so
Cuz
much.
look like he done wore himself out over there.
No. I gotta say, I've already broken the record. So
Listen, he's
yes,
been
sir.
in the Guinness Book of Records 3 times, and he has is a three. You have 3 books, right? He
Yes.
has
And the
he has
latest book
three
is
books.
New Jump Swing, Healthy Aging and Athletic Nutrition Program. The one last thing I wanted to say is that for all of those people that have their Bible, you go to your search engine and I want you to type in the Daniel fast. The
Mm-hmm.
book of Daniel. Daniel refused to eat the king's meat, and read what he ate instead. They have done research with that. They put black folks on it's not a fast, but it's a diet based upon what the book of Daniel said that Daniel ate, and see what it did for the health of those people once they went on it for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, so there you have it. So we will be back, and love you guys. Appreciate you being here, taking the time out your busy schedule. I think I saw Pastor Jackie somewhere on here. Thank you so much for being here today. And I love you. We love you, but most of all, Yeshua loves you. We can not Yahweh loves you. We can never love you. Well, Yeshua too, but we can never love you like Yahweh can. And if you have not sat down with him, had an intimate moment with him, ask him to come into your heart, ask him to forgive you, and allow him to enter in so that you can have a better experience with your life. So yes, now we're talking about health, but I want you to also understand that he has a place in your heart if you allow him, that he would come in and help you balance out a lot of these things that we are talking about. So please don't go around trying to live life by yourself. Ask him, sit with him, talk with him, because he's waiting on you. If you've never taken the time to talk to the Father, well, this is the time. And now that we're at the end of our session for today, I'm going to say, love you and see you next week. Bye bye. I
Aloha.
got aloha.
Take care.
Let's see if this works. It won't let me out. So
Ah.